So griots were so important to the people of Mali. They were thought to be very wise because they had all this information about the history of Mali. So they were really important to kings. The kings would have personal griots that they would go to talk about the needs of the country and make decisions for what was going to be best for Mali to do in different situations. So speaking of kings, we have two really important kings that you're going to hear about when you think about ancient Mali. Those kings are Sunjata and Mansa Musa. Okay, so if you're interested in hearing about Sunjata, the Lion King, they called him the Lion King. So that Lion King came a long time before our Disney Lion King ever came around. If you want to know more about Sunjata's life, he was really the first great, powerful, wonderful leader of Mali. And he has an interesting story that goes along with his life. I've read that story aloud, and we're sharing that video with you guys on YouTube. And a link to it will be included in the parent materials guide. So if you're interested in going there and hearing me read that story aloud, go ahead and you can jump to that video later. It's a good story. So then, so Sunjata was in charge of really bringing this great country together and bringing it to wealth and power. And he was a great leader for them. And then later, about 50 years or so after he died, there was another great king called Mansa Musa. And Mansa really just means king in the Malaysian language. So we've got Mansa Musa, and he was ruling in the early 1300s. And he decided that he would go on a trip across the deserts into Egypt and then over to Mecca. He was going to go on this really long trip. He took hundreds of camels, and they just had all kinds of gold and treasures on them. He brought lots of servants and followers with him, and he went on this long trip. And this wasn't a kind of trip like we take, you know, like, oh, we took a week trip in the car and that was our vacation. This was a very long trip. But like, he was taking his time moving across the continent and into Asia over months and months of time. And as he traveled, he was so generous to everyone that he came across. He would give away gold to everyone. And as he traveled through Egypt, he gave away so much gold that gold actually became less valuable in Egypt for a while after he went through, because everybody had it. He had spread around so much gold. Isn't that amazing? But while he was on this trip, he got to see parts of the world that he had never seen before. And he noticed that a lot of the great cities had great universities and libraries. So when he came back to Mali, he decided that Mali needed to have that as well. So in one of the biggest and most important cities of ancient Mali, it was called Timbuktu. Yes, that is actually a real place, Timbuktu. He decided that's where he would build their university and a huge library. This library was absolutely enormous for the time. It had lots of books that were Greek and Roman books. So lots of learning went on at this university using this library, and people came from all over the world to study at this university because it had so many books, and it had so much information there and so many people teaching that you could learn a lot if you went to Timbuktu and went to this university. So it was just something to make Mali even more wonderful and powerful. So that was an important thing that he did for his kingdom. Okay, but unfortunately, Mansa Musa did pass away, and over time, war started to break out in his kingdom. There were different people, groups of people fighting each other, and things really just started to fall apart. They didn't have another great leader like they did in Sunjata and Mansa Musa, who could come along and unite everyone and keep that powerful empire together, or kingdom together, excuse me. So the people who would come on the caravans, they also started changing the things that they were doing. They started traveling more by the ocean on boat instead of coming through in the caravans, because there was so much war going on and fighting that it really wasn't safe to take those caravans across the desert. You could get attacked by people in the desert and your things could be stolen. So they didn't feel safe coming to Mali anymore. So now you don't have people trading, you don't have that salt and gold coming in. So you don't have the wealth that you did before. You have war going on, and the people are all on different sides. So Mali became less and less of a powerful and important empire. Okay, let's go to our next page here. So now we're going to look at how the empire changed over time. Let's see. Actually, I think, I skipped a page, I'm sorry. So first, before we look at how it changed over time, we're going to look at some of the jobs that people had when Mali was at its height. So we know at the end of that kingdom, things started to fall apart. But during the time when it was wealthy and strong, there were really three main jobs that people in ancient Mali did. So one of the biggest jobs that had the most people working at it were those mines. You could be a salt miner up in the Sahara Desert area, or just outside of Mali, they had people who were in the gold mines. That was technically kind of a little bit outside of Mali, but still a lot of people in that area were miners, either salt miners or gold miners, because the whole economy for Mali really depended on those two things. So they needed lots of people. And it was really, really hard work. You can see there's a man in this picture over here on the side in the purple, and he is a gold miner. And you can see it's a very dangerous job. You have to dig deep underground, doing a lot of work by hand. And in the salt mines, it was so hot in the Sahara Desert. So a lot of really hard work. So if you were a miner, you were definitely working really hard. Then from those miners, now we have our gold, we have our salt. So the next job we need is traders. We need the traders to bring the salt and bring the gold to Mali to trade. We need the people coming from other places throughout Africa and even from other continents bringing their goods to trade. So you'd have lots of people whose profession was trading there in Mali, because so many different caravans came and joined together right in Mali. So lots of people trading, lots of traders as a job. Then finally, of course, you're going to need to feed everybody. So you're going to need to have farmers. Now, at the time of ancient Mali, the climate was a bit better in Mali than it is now. Unfortunately, now the Sahara Desert has spread a bit. The climate has become hotter and drier. So there's more desert than there was 800 years ago. 800 years ago, there was desert, but there were more grassland areas too. So those farmers could raise crops in the grasslands, and they could also raise cattle. So you would have people who were raising cattle, growing crops to feed the whole empire. Also, if you lived in Mali near the Niger River or near the Atlantic Ocean, you might be a fisherman who's also helping to provide food for the empire. So those were really important jobs as well. So the three main jobs that we had in the ancient empire of Mali would be miners, salt and gold miners, traders, and farmers. Okay, so now we are going to look and see how our Mali changed over time. So if you take a look here at this map that they have, that red box that's on the map, that is Timbuktu, because Mali started in settlements like that are along the Niger River. They were small settlements to start with, just like in Egypt, you started with small settlements along the Nile River. Just like in China, you started with small settlements along the Yangtze River. A lot of places, you start with small settlements along a river, because a river gives you fish, it gives you transportation, it gives you water that you need. So it gives you a lot of things that you need for life. So Mali started out very small with groups of people living along the Niger River. But then as the empire started to grow and they found the salt, you can see on the map where the salt mines were located, and also the gold mines. Once those resources were found and they were found to be very valuable, and people needed to trade those resources for other things that they needed, that's when Mali began to grow and get big and just become one of the wealthiest kingdoms ever in Africa. So that's really when it was at its peak. So if you look at where the purple is, look on the map and see that purple, you can see it goes all the way from the ocean inland to the area where Mali, the modern day country, is located in Africa. So it was much longer than it used to be because it spread all the way into the ocean, to that coastline area. All right, so we know that Mali was big and strong for a while, but then wars started coming, the desert was getting bigger, people stopped coming to Mali as a place to trade as much, it became more dangerous. So Mali became weaker and less wealthy, and now Mali has a bit of a different shape. So if you look at that map, that orangish color is what Mali looks like today. So it spreads further north into the Sahara Desert area than it did during its peak time. And it's kind of shrunk in some of the other areas as well. But Mali is still a country, and there are lots of people who currently live in Mali. And there are different types of people who are living in Mali. There are Fulani people, Dogon people, and Bambara people who all live in Mali today and have their own special traditions. There's actually more than 12 major ethnic groups in Mali today. So, and many of those groups have their own types of cultures. So it's very much a mix of different types of people living in Mali today. All right, I hope that helped you to understand a little bit better about Mali, and hopefully this information will help you to complete your work that you have due from your packet. So in the packet, there is some reading, and then there's some questions or little charts that you need to fill out. So as you're reading through that, if you need to refer back to my video for a little clarification, feel free to do that. But hopefully you'll be able to find all the answers to questions and things that you need either in this video or in your reading. Also, don't forget that if you would like to hear more about The Lion King, Sunjata, find my video of my read aloud of that book, because you might find it really interesting. All right, guys, thanks so much. Bye.